Kyle, thank you for joining us on the Million Ways to Millions podcast.
Thanks for the invite.
This podcast, we love to talk about different ways people have gone about building wealth. I love your story, hearing about kind of how you got started and really diving into education, financial education being one of the key aspects of that, and then building businesses and then buying real estate, but really going from, it's not like you had a whole lot of financial education handed to you from early on. You had to learn from scratch, which I think that's very relevant for some of our listeners because that's kind of where they're at.
Yeah.
But I'd love just to introduce yourself. What do you do?
Yeah.
And then we can go from there.
Awesome. Kyle Shecker, and I am a business owner, entrepreneur, really, I would say. So I've started a few different businesses over the years. Right now I have three businesses, I guess, 2 7-figure, 1 6-figure, have real estate. I think we have like 8 doors right now.
Awesome.
And looking to grow that portfolio through real estate. And then we do traditional investments and stuff as well, of course.
Awesome. 401ks and all that good stuff.
Yeah, the boring stuff. Yeah,
what industries are those businesses in?
One is in technology. So it's like a tech company. Other one, agriculture.
Awesome.
And then real estate. That's really what I use for kind of all the real estate buying, wholesale, whatever, whatever it is.
But making money in business and then storing it in a real estate model a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. Basically, just using that, funneling it into real estate. That's kind of the long term,
Awesome.
Steady Eddie, and just watch that grow. Hopefully tenants pay down, the mortgage.
Yep. That's the goal.
Grow some wealth.
I love it, man. Awesome. And so obviously you were handed all of this as a kid.
Yeah.
You have silver spoon in your mouth. You were given a Yale education in finance from a very young age.
6'5", blue eyes, finance.
Finance bro. So that wasn't the case.
Well, I'm neither 6'5" or a trust fund.
Yes.
Yeah. No, that was not. No, I would say probably grew up lower middle class, lower, and it fluctuated a little bit. Kind of a split family. So for quite a while, had single mom, going back to school, working multiple jobs, stuff like that, like just kind of sit me in front of the TV and like mom worked really hard to make ends meet. And I think at that time I didn't know, you don't really know, what the situation is, not until later on, you kind of look back and realize, what it was like.
I have a similar experience where I look back and I was like, when I was a kid, I thought having sticky rice for dinner every night was like a really cool thing. But apparently it was because we didn't have anything else to eat. So it's just kind of some of those interesting things. Where
everybody doesn't do that?
Yeah, everyone doesn't do that. Yeah. I love sticky rice. So
what is a steak?
I still like sticky rice.
I don't think I had a steak until I was like 16.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so you started off with no financial education, and you're seeing your mom work hard. So how did that progress into you starting these businesses, and kind of how did that mindset shift for you?
Oh man, probably not till after college, I would say. So like extended family, my mom did get remarried. Grew up in what seemed to be relatively traditional family there. Went off to college, and a lot of my extended family didn't go to college. My sister did, and I just kind of followed suit there, and didn't really think anything of it. And especially at that time too, like had no financial education. I thought my student loans, I wasn't accumulating interest until after college, which is like, So then I was there studied architecture for 5 years. So, that interest added up,
Awesome.
Came out with like $75K in student loans. So I was like, all right, well, this is not great. A lot more than I thought I had even.
So did you start like paying bills? You're like, wait a second, I got these loan payments now?
Yeah, things are not adding up. Yeah, for sure. And actually, my wife and I moved up to the Twin Cities right after, and we got married probably 6 months after I graduated. And at that time, money's like pretty tight. Just trying to figure it out. We had a lot of money fights, stuff like that. It was actually on our honeymoon that I read Dave Ramsey. Total Money Makeover. And from that point on, I was like on board. I'm like, okay, we need to pay off this debt. We need to like just build a future for ourselves or whatever, which is awesome if you have read the book.
Yes.
My wife had not read the book, and
got to get her on board.
Yeah. So it took like
some practice.
A year.
Yeah, it takes some time.
It took like a year to get on board, and eventually we had like just a huge fight about finances, whatever. She like locks herself in a room, reads the book in like 2 hours, very fast reader. Comes out and she's like, "Okay, we got to do this."
Yep.
And I was like, "Are you all right? Let's do it." Yeah. So
go through this whole period of time. You pay off all this debt, get financially stable. I'd say at that point. How long did it take you to pay off all that debt?
It took about a year. We decided, we moved out. We're like, okay, we got to get like gazelle intense here.
Yep.
So we moved out of our house, rented it out. That was cash flowing like $500 a month. So that was my first introduction to,
there you go.
Like, oh, this is nice. Like
nice.
Extra income. Of course, like I'm the landlord, no property manager, getting the stupid calls, and so
all the toilets,
double-edged sword there. But we moved in actually with my in-laws, which is where you want to spend your first year of marriage, or maybe second at that point. But we moved in. We're like 1 year. We've got a plan. We're going to pay it off. We're going to move out in 1 year and move on. And almost to a T. That's how
awesome.
That planned out.
That takes so much discipline because it's one thing to kind of track it out and make the plan. But that life comes into play, and issues come up or unexpected expenses. So the fact that you guys were able to have that plan and then execute it because you had the discipline to do so, what was kind of part of that mindset? I guess you referred to the gazelle intensity, but
getting out of the in-laws' house.
Is it your in-laws, so your wife's
my wife, or no, my in-laws and my student loans, and
there you go.
So like just the guilt there the whole time. I'm like, okay, we got to get out of here. So. And it was great. Like we get along great. So it was a good time, but we had a plan. We're going to stick to that. And the great thing too with doing that is you don't really have many expenses, and so like there weren't a lot of things that just popped up out of nowhere and stuff like that. So we kind of lay out that plan, stick to it, and again, just kind of that guilt in the back of your mind of like, all right, we told them a year, like we got to get out of here.
We got to be out of here in a year,
and almost to a year. I think they're they're like, so when you get like when you get out, we're like,
12 months.
Yeah, we're about there.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
And so. We over our correspondence, getting ready for this interview as well. You talked about how you took these stages of your financial education. So it starts with Total Money Makeover, but then you moved on to Rich Dad Poor Dad at one point. So how did that come into play, and kind of describe that breakdown of those stages, and why start at the beginning versus going to the end?
Yeah, and I almost wonder. I feel like this is just at least so with people really looking to seek out. Financial education and lifelong learning, kind of prescribing to that. I feel like at some point you're going to find both Dave Ramsey, which I highly recommend early on. Just that budgeting, learning, how not wondering where your money went at the end of the month, but telling it where to go, and those basic things that aren't so basic depending on how you grew up, right? That never happened in my house. And so just kind of teaching myself those things through that. And then as you get further down the line, it's anti-debt, pay off all debt. And then, Rich Dad Poor Dad, you kind of learn, okay, hey, there's good debt and there's bad debt. And, I had bad debt with the student loans. We didn't have any vehicle debt or, credit card debt, other things like that, which is good. But, to really kind of grow that wealth quicker, you can leverage debt to build that faster. And so,
that's debt against assets. So that's that kind of definition of the good debt versus the bad debt.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think I saw probably like a Grant Cardone, graph basically of like what rich people do versus like poor people is like, you make the money and then you buy Corvette, whatever, you buy the thing. And then all you have to do is instead of buying that end product, that end thing that you want, just buy that asset first. And so buying that asset that then gives you monthly cash flow that you can pay for that Corvette, or
Love it.
insert whatever that is. And that's the different mindset between poor is just like, oh, I have $50, I'm like going to go buy the thing.
Yep.
Okay, no, I've got $50, I'm going to wait until I have 150. I'm going to buy something that's going to appreciate in value and cash flow, and then I'm going to go buy the thing. And so just that delayed gratification is just critical.
Yep. And it's that patience, and then not spending the money that takes your hours to make on those fun expenses, so to speak.
Yeah.
The Corvette or the nice car or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think if you can get into that mindset of, anytime you're buying something, equating that to like, okay, this is 40 hours of my time. Do I really want that? Is it worth a whole week's worth? Time to like work for that?
Awesome.
And, sometimes you can say no.
Awesome. So, what point did you read The Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then how did you start applying that in your own life?
I would say, we moved out. Actually, I think we kept that house for a little bit, moved into another one, rented it out. I think we eventually sold that. Or no, I know we eventually sold it because I don't own it anymore. Yes. And just moved into a new home, and I think shortly thereafter, I kind of got my license in real estate. I'm like, okay, hey, I want to do this. I was practicing architecture at the time, but I knew, I don't want to do this long term, looking for kind of alternative things. So I really started to get a pretty good interest in real estate at that time.
Yep.
Thought the only path to that is like, I needed to become an agent, and so like worked my day job and then like tried to sell houses at night and weekends and stuff like that. And that wasn't a great fit, like long term. And but yeah, that's really where I started getting shortly thereafter really into real estate.
And so when did these businesses come into play?
Yeah, so probably the real estate kind of side gig might have been the first thing, but I would say I always post college had some sort of like side gig. I tried like window washing, pressure washing, pretty good, like per hour, thing. But I wasn't thinking like business owner, right?
Yep.
So I'm there physically doing the things and not like
different mindset.
How do I charge $400 but pay somebody $100, and then go get 2 gigs and get 2 people doing it, and that's a business mindset and like running the business. And I was working in the business,
You were working in, but not on the business.
Right, right. And so, so I kind of always had some sort of side gig, I guess. But yeah, it was a few years later, business partner. I think in all of my businesses now, I have a business partner. That's how I think that there are people that kind of offset you have skill sets and you also have, things that you're not great at. And finding people that are really good at the things that you're not great at, and just leveraging each other's skills, I think you can go so much further. And so in each of my businesses, I have a business partner. And so, just opportunity there, similar mindset, just talking about different things. Hey, whatever the problem is. And, just kind of jumping into that. And I think that's important.
And is it the same person or is it multiple different people?
Different people. Yeah.
Different people.
Yeah.
And do you think there's a good part of having that partner as essentially having somebody to help push you along so you don't get complacent? Is that a benefit as well?
Yeah, definitely. You have that like level of guilt, I would almost say, of like, okay, well they're grinding, you're getting emails at 11 o'clock at night or whatever, but it's like, you wake up 7 the next day and then you're like, oh, they were up at like 11 and then they're up at 5 again.
What competition?
Like, yeah. No, and it's good. You're like, oh, man, I'm sleeping too much. I got to cut out, get a little bit less of that, So iron sharpens iron. I think there, and then just covering each other's, just what they're not as great at, kind of picking that up, and vice versa.
Complementary skill
sets.
Yeah,
I think you just go a lot further.
Awesome. And so when did that first business kind of take off a little bit more? From graduating from side business or a side gig to an actual like this cash flowing 6-7 figure business. And so like part of the thing, so you hear like 6 or 7 figure business,
that doesn't mean that it's not bootstrapped still,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like it's still
It's a gross revenue. Let's be
gross
clear.
revenue, and I'm not sitting on a beach yet. With that, and so this is all a journey, and for the most part, I'm still working in the businesses, and so eventually, I want to work on the businesses and really continue to grow those and stuff. But I think that's important, to mention there. So I would say even today, it's like, okay, we're still bootstrapping, we're still grinding, we're still growing, and those are all good things. But probably 6 years ago, I think I went like full-time entrepreneur. I was around 30, 31, so probably somewhere in there.
Cool.
And just went full-time entrepreneur enough to like bring home a salary and like, okay, I can do this full-time and just kind of work on that.
Love it, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so what's the first business that ended up taking off? What was the industry? And what would you say is like one of the key elements that you think allowed that business to do better than some of the other side gigs you were doing?
Man. Yeah. So industry, we actually started out in bike sharing, doing bike share gigs. We still have them, probably 75 or so around the country today. And that has morphed. I had that like as a side gig for several years. So been doing that for probably 8 or 9 at this point. So we started out with that, and it just kind of morphed over time. And now it's locker industry, specifically software for smart lockers. And so,
cool.
it's technology business, but we basically just rebuilt what we had already built for bike sharing in a much, much larger industry. And that's really where, we've seen more growth than, the original industry. And I think
switch from the bikes to being the storage lockers, being that key kind of transition.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so it started out as this technology company for the ride share or the bike share sort of thing, kind of like the scooters or whatever. A similar idea to that.
Yeah, it's started like a little bit before that boom, right? And we're like, okay, hey, bike sharing's taking off. It's taking off. This is going to be great, And then like scooters come in, and that goes like to the moon. We're like, we missed the boat. Like, we were like right there. All we had to do was like step on the boat, and we're like, we missed the boat. And it's like, okay, well, hey, we still have these bikes. We're still adding them on, stuff like that, but slow growth, but growth still. Start thinking, okay, hey, what other opportunities? How can we use the same technology in other ways? And that's where, finally we kind of, we decided like, let's start manufacturing our own lockers, like these like individual lockers or whatever, and realize like, okay, hey, we're not manufacturers. We're like, let's do the locks. We're like, we're not manufacturers. And so eventually we're like, all right, our niche is the software space.
Awesome.
Even though I don't code or anything, we've gotten pretty good at that side of it. So we're like, all right, let's just lean into that in this new industry.
So you own a technology company without knowing how to code software yourself?
I'd probably be on that beach retired by this point if it was the other way around.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Right on,
for
man.
sure.
Awesome. And did you notice when you kind of switched to the storage locker, and did you notice like a substantial kind of revenue boost in that when you changed? It kind of gave that affirmation that was the right choice to make.
Yeah, I think the big thing I would say is product market fit.
Awesome.
So we were pushing product on people, or like, hey, you really want a bike share? It's gonna be great, blah blah blah. It's like, I don't really, but I guess all right, fine. Versus like now we have people coming to us, and like there's a real need there, and they need our actual product that we're selling. So it took us years to find that product market fit. And we were talking before the podcast, about like buying a business instead. Where, okay, hey, it's been around, maybe we can use technology to like grow that, but there's already product market fit there. It took us six years to find product market fit.
Yeah, so one of those first things you do when you're building a business is that because the businesses, they grow off of providing value. And so getting that product market fit is the key to like, what is valuable about this business, or what service or value can I bring to my customers? And the key to buying a business that's already existing is that that's already been done, or at least you should be buying
at a base level.
On a base level,
Yeah,
it's like there are people who would like to pay money to get this service or product,
and I don't have to like bribe them or force them into it. Yeah, yeah.
Perfect, awesome, man. And so this locker company ended up doing really well. Was it at the same time you started doing one of your other companies then, or when did the second business kind of come into play?
Yeah, well, several years later, and yeah, just opportunity there as well. Just kind of partnering again, and then the real estate business, and that's really
cool.
Always kind of been on the side and growing that, and especially with that one, I had partners where it was great, but maybe just not the right fit. Right, and then finding the right fit, and once you kind of find that right fit, really have seen quite a bit of growth. Awesome. Kind of from that point on, which is good, and awesome. Just makes it a lot easier.
Awesome. So the second business, what is the industry that's in, and then kind of describe the business model in general.
Yeah, ag industry dealer for farm equipment, basically.
Very exciting. Very
super
cutting
boring.
edge.
Yeah. Extremely boring business, and dude, hindsight 2020. I mean, if so, you're familiar with Pace Morby or whatever. So many other entrepreneurs out there, build businesses that feed on each other, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people that buy businesses own maybe a marketing business, and so they use the same marketing people that they know are really good, and they bring it into each one of their businesses to really boost that and like blow that up. And I recommend that. It's maybe better than like diversifying.
You're telling me the ag and then the storage locker technology companies don't
unrelated. Unrelated. I just think there's benefit to having that where
awesome.
They gel, they feed off of each other, and the same customers, and then you can kind of sell like, hey, you also might want my other business, but this other product, whatever it is.
Do as I say, not as I do. And then
do as I say, not as I do. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
And so now one of the cool things you've been into lately is you mentioned Pace Morby. You've been doing a little bit more of the sub 2 stuff. So, which you had kind of talked about how you started with Dave Ramsey, then you went to Robert Kiyosaki as far as your education goes, and then you're on to Pace Morby. So how did that come about? And then what have you been able to do with that?
Trial and error, like having the first rental property and, checking that out, and then buying like, okay, hey, I'm going to go buy one, just off the market, and, going that route. It's like, okay, well, this is pretty expensive. This is like, probably $60,000 per pop,
per
to
property.
Like get in on this. And, that's slow growth there, especially early on. And so looking at just different ways, different like opportunities of like, okay, so I've Michael Blanc syndication, looked into that, just education, right? The Pace Morby method, sub 2, which for anybody not familiar is purchasing a property subject to the existing mortgage. So all of those mortgages that were, either started or refinanced in 2020, 2021, with like 3% interest rates are amazing, and they can cash flow. And like today, going and buying a property, at like 7% or whatever it is today, and it's a lot more expensive, and the rate is really high. It doesn't cash flow, or many of the properties won't cash flow.
Especially at the price point. And I think one of the key things with subject to is that there's this need there. Because the sellers, maybe they bought their house at an inflated value. And so now their houses aren't even worth that, so they can't even sell it. Yeah. And a lot of investors can't even buy them with a new mortgage because of that, what you just said with the interest rates are higher now.
Yeah, I just purchased one 2 weeks ago that was the case. Built in 2023, beautiful home. It's brand new. It still smells new. And they have... for whatever reason, they needed to like move out. They just got a tenant in there. He's on a 2-year lease. It cash flows on the existing mortgage rate, which is, it's 2023, so it's not even. It's still high, right? still a high mortgage rate. So if rates, come down or continue to go down, we could refinance that and have
Yeah.
even better cash flow down the road. But there, it's less than a year. He doesn't have any equity or very little equity.
Yeah.
So he'd be writing a check to
To sell
sell it. And so we came in and said, hey, you know what? Instead of writing a check to sell it, which you don't have the money for, what if we gave you 15 grand? That's a huge swing for you. And we'll just take over your existing mortgage. We'll take over this payments. We now own the property, take over the tenant, everything there. So for 15 grand, now cash flowing property. We could refinance it down the road, but it's cash flowing. Don't have to find a tenant, anything like that.
You bought a brand new 2023 property for $15,000
for 15 grand. Yeah.
So you like robbing these people, or it's so?
No, it's win-win.
I know, right? So because you had mentioned the seller had put a tenant in there, so they were renting it.
Yeah.
So why do you think the seller didn't just keep the property and continue to rent it?
He was moving out of country, and I think wanted to or needed to just be done with it, and didn't really have the money to write a check to get out of it. And so we come along and offer him money that he can walk away with, and it's win-win. He couldn't be happier. We couldn't be. Awesome. Brand new home for 15 grand. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
What a great just win-win situation for everybody.
Yeah.
I love that. So how long have you been doing this subject to thing, and how has this last year looked for you with that business?
Probably a year and a half, maybe. About a year and a half. First part was really just educating, learning, just trying to like figure it out, right? And then I had mentioned partnership, which is important, and finding the right partners. And so I think once I found the right partner for this, and we worked together, I helped kind of bring capital for the different projects.
Perfect.
And he's a closer, and so I'm not.
He's the shark. He goes out there and gets it done.
I wish I was, but I'm not. I'm not the closer. So he can close a deal.
There you go.
I can't. And then I'll partner, bring in the capital for the deal. And it's just like win-win. Awesome. And so we're both happy, have the same goals. So make sure, okay, where we're headed, it's the same place. We both want to acquire as many cash flowing properties as we can over the next few years, and just kind of partnered up on that. And so this year we've acquired 4, I think.
Awesome.
This year, yeah.
That's crazy. And what's the average down payment for these properties you're buying?
15 grand. Yeah, about 15 grand.
That's awesome.
Our goal is 10% or less.
Perfect.
Yeah. So if and for those that don't know, if you're going to get a single family home, traditional mortgage, you're going to have to pay 20% down on that. If you're doing a multifamily, it's going to be 25% down that you have to pay. And so I didn't know that at first. I bought a 4-plex, and I was like, calculate 20% down, blah, blah. Oh, an extra 5% that, okay, I have to scrape together some cash for that here at the end. But yeah, you're 20 or 25% on every single property. And so our goal is to get into properties 10% or less. We consider a win.
And have any of these properties been multifamily, or is it all typically single family?
Yeah, so far all single family on the subject.
I know we had talked a little bit about some multifamily opportunities you had found, but
not yet. It'll happen. It'll happen.
Awesome, man. So it's so cool seeing the different partnership opportunities you've been able to find. And again, you talk a lot about essentially being able to add value to each other and add value to your customer. So what do you think is that a couple of key tips when it comes to finding that right partner, since you got experience in that field, for someone who's maybe starting off and they're kind of looking at the wealth building journey, or they're excited about possibly doing real estate or subject to, and they're looking to find other people they can work with?
I think it's really important to know who you are, know what your skill sets are, what you suck at. It's important, and then also know where it is that you want to end up. Where am I going? So a lot of self-reflection, I think, is important. And like I said, I mean, I can kind of do sales. I'm okay at it, but I'm not a shark. I'm not. I'm not.
Yep.
And so
You're
like
not the closer.
partnering with those who are.
Awesome.
It's just like it's magic. Just watching that side of it is just like you do you, man. Like that's amazing. So yeah, just knowing, hey, you know what, that's something I'm not great at. They're really good at it. This is something that's needed to really grow to get me where I want to be. So I think, yeah, that self-reflection, what you're good at, what you're not, and then where you're headed.
And with the self-reflection, what do you think is a key part of finding that skill set? So are you typically like trying these things and you're just noticing what you're bad at? Or are you typically taking like a personality test, or kind of like, what's that process look like?
Yeah, I've taken personality tests. I think it's just like over time, you just kind of like
in doing
realize certain things, and maybe it's not even like it can be that. It could also be like, I really don't like this side of the business at all. Like I don't.
Whatever it is you're dreading doing every single day, just outsource that completely, or partner to get rid of it.
Yeah, that thing that like week after week after week is on your like to-do list, and you just keep pushing it down the road. Find somebody that is drawn to that, and we'll just like go do that.
Mesh.
Yeah. And then it actually reminds me of the book Who Not How, which I think you've read as well.
Oh yeah, I love that book.
Yeah, and that one, I would say in the last like year, that's probably been one of the more eye-opening books that I've read.
Awesome.
Is just knowing, finding that who can do the thing that I'm either not that great at or just really dread doing, and vice versa.
That's awesome.
And if you can find that,
rather than trying to delve into learning how to do that thing, you find the person to do it, who to do it.
You could, but
but why do that? There's all these other great people out there you can work with.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Awesome. Reflecting on your real estate journey, what would be a good piece of advice you'd give someone who's maybe looking at doing their first rental property? Something you've learned when you were doing your own landlording back in the day, and still do now. What were some of those key lessons you learned at first that you think can help avoid the common pitfalls for new people?
Oh man, I think I wouldn't even say. I think it's good maybe to avoid the common pitfalls. Learn from others' mistakes, but I think it's also valuable to have some of those experiences yourself. I would say if you're considering doing your first deal, the most important thing is doing your first deal, because you can sit on the sideline for years. It's so scary. That first deal, like my and getting a tenant in there, and it was a house that I lived in. It's like they're going to destroy my crap. I'm going to get the calls, and I did. I did get the calls. Like
I did get the calls.
Yeah,
you didn't avoid that.
Yeah. I remember one time the tenant like calls me up, and I'm like 45 minutes away, and I get there, and it was something with the dryer. They're like the knob for the dryer. I can't like turn it on, right? And I'm like, okay, well, do you turn on the beep, the sound on and off? Do you use that one? Like, no, I'm just going to leave that there. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, pull it off, and I push it on the other one. I'm like, you now have a knob. You called me all the way over here for a knob on the thing? Use some pliers. So, like, as soon as I put it on there, she was just like, oh, why didn't I think of that? I'm like, I don't know, but I wish you had. Like,
45-minute drive
there,
and then 45-minute drive back.
Later. It's better than some of the other like frozen pipes, and like I've had the like frozen pipes, a tree falling down, knocking out the electrical. Like stuff happens, it does. But I think doing that first deal, and probably the pitfall you want to avoid is you want to make sure it's not a disaster. That it doesn't need to be like perfect. It doesn't need to be a grand slam, because you'll never do it.
Doesn't need to be a home run.
But if it's really bad, you won't do a second. And so you just need a project that you can get into without scaring yourself away from doing another one. And so it doesn't need to be the best buy of all time, as long as it's not the worst.
I remember when I was first getting started, I was asking a couple of mentors of mine who were in real estate. I was looking at a couple different deals to do, and I was looking at doing, okay, we could buy this property at a lease option and lease option to this other person, and trying to do this kind of multi-layered thing. And the greatest piece of advice they gave me is like, this sounds a little too complicated. Like maybe if you're just starting out, maybe you just do something that's very simple. And I think one of my flaws when I got started was finding doing too big a renovation. Is always doing these massive renovations, building out basements and stuff like that. It's like you can just buy a single family house, put some LVP in, some paint down, that's it, and put a tenant in it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then that could be your first one to get you into it and get you started and get you some foot in the door to real estate in general.
Yeah, I think putting like some knowing yourself again. So like well, if you ask my wife, I'm not handy at all, but like I'm somewhat handy. But like it takes me.
You got that knob trick down. Move the knob from the washer.
Come on, that's important stuff. Yeah,
good stuff, right there.
But knowing what you're capable of, what you're not, and knowing like really what's worth your time to do. And so my very first flip. I was working full time and bought a property, didn't have kids yet, thank God. Otherwise we would have been divorced. But I literally went from work to the house, worked on it till midnight, nights, weekends. I didn't see my wife for like multiple months. It should have been like a 3-week project. And
it always like should be a three-week project.
It was like 3 months.
Yep.
And barely made any money on that deal at the end of it. I'm like, I actually made below minimum wage. I hung on to it too long. The costs were too, the recurring costs on it and everything like that. I'm like, okay, that sucked, and I don't want to like redo that. So learning from it, and now my very next flip, I decided, you know what, I'm actually going to do it out of state. There you go. Because I cannot drive to the property and like
forces you to come up with those systems.
You have so many things. You're like, oh, to like replace the toilet, it's like it's $400. No, it's like $200 for the. You're charging me too much. I'm like, I'll just go do it, right? And then like 12 hours later, because I suck at it, I have a leaky
three trips
toilet.
To the hardware store.
A leaky toilet. Yeah.
Yep.
So I did it out of state then,
awesome.
and ever since, all of my projects have been out of state, and I just know. If it's close by, I'm probably going to want to get like too involved with it. Yep. And now I have kids, and like I can't.
It forces you to figure it out, which is a really really cool thing to do that. And I think in general, taking that first step, buying that first property, forces you to figure it out, one way or another. When things come up, you get it done. Yeah. It's awesome, man.
Yeah. Scary, but just do it.
Just do it. Yeah. I love it. Awesome. And any good tips and advice for people who are maybe looking to go in the business route? When they're kind of building that business, you mentioned the product market fit.
That's critical. So so many times you're like, I've got a great idea. It's like, okay, and there again too, how many great ideas have we all had? Like, who cares about your good idea? Like, I don't care at all. Like you're not going to do it. You're never going to do it. Well, no, it's not that you're not important. It's like, okay, well, what did you do about it?
Yeah,
your great idea. How many great ideas do we have that we just like didn't take any action? And it's like, okay, and then maybe somebody else did, and you're like, oh, I could have made millions of dollars. Could have, but you didn't. No. And so real estate, it's the same way. Like you can make millions, or just sit on the sidelines and do nothing. And so business, it's the same thing. If you have that problem, and you're like, oh, here's an interesting solution to that, or even just like somebody else has this product, but I can sell it to these customers over here for more, make the margin, whatever it is. Like you don't have to invent something, you don't have to, but go into it, hopefully, knowing that product market fit, what's the minimum amount of time and or money I can test with to determine, do I have product market fit? So do that quickly. Change, modify, whatever you need to do. Test some more and either get in or get out.
I love it. There's a great book. I'm sure you probably read it. It's called Ready, Fire, Aim.
Yeah, I read that last year as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Because it talks about the different stages of business, and it really describes something similar to what you just said. Of the first stage of business, as quickly and as cheaply as possible, get that first sale, and to prove that product market fit. Don't spend time on business cards and websites and all this other fluff and crap. Like, just is the product you're making valuable? Will people pay you money for it? You got to get that instantly.
I have
Don't got a business.
I have designed so many business cards with different businesses, logos, and name, like great names, cool logos, and like nobody ever saw the business card, just because I was like, I didn't have a customer. I didn't launch it. I didn't, whatever it was, it's like I have a great idea. Who cares? No, but I got a business card too. Who cares? Take some action and sell some stuff,
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So the best piece of advice for both real estate and business is just get started and just take some action and do something.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Kyle, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate coming on the Million Ways Millions podcast, man.
Love it. Yeah.
Where can people learn more about you and get in contact with you?
LinkedIn. Yeah, just find me, Kyle Shecker. Easy enough. Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.
There you go. That's it, man.